Keys. You carry one every single day. But the first key ever made wasn't meant to lock a door. It was built to protect something people were willing to kill for. And once it existed, trust was never enough again. 4,000 years ago, in ancient Egypt, someone carved the first lock out of wood. A massive thing bolted to a door with pins that dropped into slots. And the only way to open it? A large wooden tool shaped almost like a toothbrush with pegs sticking out at just the right angles. That was the first key. Not metal, not shiny. Just a carved piece of wood that said, "This door answers to me." And honestly, that's wild. Because it means for most of human history, there was no such thing as locking your door. You either trusted the people around you, or you didn't have anything worth stealing. The moment someone invented a lock, it meant the world had changed. Trust wasn't enough anymore. Now this is where everything changes. The Romans got involved. And the Romans didn't just make locks, they made them small. They figured out how to work with metal, with iron and bronze, and suddenly, a key wasn't this giant wooden stick you hauled around. It was something you could carry, something that fit in your hand. And then they did something no one expected. They turned keys into jewelry. Roman citizens wore their keys as rings, just wrapped them right around their fingers. And this wasn't about convenience, not really. It was about status. If you had a key ring, it meant you had something worth locking away. It meant you had wealth, property, something to protect. Walking around with a key on your finger was like saying, "Yeah, I own things, important things." Think about that for a second. 4,000 years ago, a key was a flex. But here's where it gets darker. And most people don't know this part. Keys didn't just protect treasure, they locked people in. The Romans used keys in their prisons, obviously, but it went further than that. In medieval Europe, chastity belts, if they were actually real, and historians still fight about that, used locks and keys. Entire castles were designed around who held which key. The lord of the castle didn't just own the building, he owned the access. Every door, every gate, every chamber, controlled by a piece of metal he kept on his belt. And the people who made those keys? Locksmiths. They became some of the most important craftsmen in any city. Not because they were artists, though some of them absolutely were, but because they held a kind of power that most people didn't think about. A locksmith who could make a key could also copy one, and a copied key in the wrong hands, that could bring down a household, start a war, overthrow a king. Now this part is wild. There's actually a famous story from the 1700s. King Louis the 16th of France, the one who lost his head during the revolution, he was obsessed with locksmithing, like genuinely obsessed. He had a personal workshop in Versailles where he spent hours making locks and keys by hand. The King of France, one of the most powerful men on earth, and his hobby was metalwork. Some historians say he was better at making locks than he was at running a country, which, given how things turned out, might actually be true. But while Louis was tinkering in his workshop, the world outside was changing fast. The Industrial Revolution hit, and suddenly keys weren't handmade anymore. They were mass-produced, stamped out of metal by machines. And that changed everything. Because now, locks and keys weren't just for the wealthy. Ordinary people could lock their doors. Businesses could secure their shops. Banks could build vaults. And at this point, keys weren't just objects anymore. They were systems of control. And the locksmiths? They had to get creative. Because the moment locks became common, so did lockpicking. It became an arms race. Somebody builds a better lock, somebody else figures out how to break it, over and over, for centuries. And it wasn't just criminals doing the picking. Governments hired locksmiths to break into enemy safes. Spies carried lockpicks the way soldiers carried weapons. The key was supposed to keep people out, but it also created an entire profession dedicated to getting in. And here's where it gets interesting. One of the biggest moments in that arms race happened in 1851 at the Great Exhibition in London. An American locksmith named Alfred Hobbs walked up to the famous Brahma lock, a lock that had been considered unbreakable for over 60 years, and he picked it. Took him about 51 hours spread over 16 days, but he did it. The crowd went silent. The lock that was supposed to be invincible cracked open by a guy from America with a set of picks and a lot of patience. That moment shook the entire security industry. If the Brahma could be picked, nothing was safe. And it triggered a wave of innovation that we're still riding today. New lock designs, new key shapes, new materials. Linus Yale Jr. came along not long after and invented the pin tumbler lock, the same basic design that's probably in your front door right now. One embarrassment at a World's Fair and the entire industry had to reinvent itself. All because one man proved that no lock is ever truly unbreakable. But this is where everything flips. Somewhere around the 1960s, something shifted. Keys started disappearing. Not literally, but the concept started changing. Hotels switched to key cards, cars got remote fobs, and then phones came along, and suddenly your face is the key, your fingerprint is the key. The physical object, that piece of metal you've been carrying for 4,000 years, started to feel a little outdated, and the speed of that shift is kind of staggering when you think about it. For 3,900 years, a key was a physical thing you could hold. Then, in the span of maybe 50 years, it became a code, a signal, a scan of your eye. Your car doesn't even need you to take the key out of your pocket anymore. It just knows you're there. The door unlocks before you touch it. We went from carved wood to invisible radio waves, and most people didn't even notice the transition happening. And that raises a question nobody really talks about. If your key is digital, if it lives on a server somewhere, who actually holds the key? You think you do. But your smart lock company can revoke your access remotely. Your landlord can change your digital code while you're at work. Your car manufacturer can push an update that disables your key fob. You don't own the key anymore. You're borrowing permission. That's a very different thing. That's a very different thing. But here's the funny part. We still use them. Physical ones. Billions of us, every single day. Your front door probably still has a metal lock and a metal key. In 2026, with all our technology, with facial recognition and encrypted digital passes, most of humanity still relies on a mechanism that the Romans would recognize. And I think there's something kind of beautiful about that. We landed on the moon. We split the atom. We built computers that fit in our pockets. We can talk to someone on the other side of the planet in real time. But when it comes to the simple question of who gets to open this door, we're still using the same answer we came up with 4,000 years ago. A shaped piece of metal that turns inside a hole. And somehow, that's enough. You know what's strange though? The key didn't survive because it was the best solution. It survived because it was good enough. And in a world obsessed with optimization and upgrades, there's something almost rebellious about that. Good enough. Still here. Still working. No software update needed. No subscription. No server outage that locks you out of your own house at 2 in the morning. Just metal and teeth and a turn of the wrist. Actually, the oldest known lock, it was found in the ruins of the Palace of Khorsabad near Nineveh. That was around 700. No, actually, it might have been closer to 704 before the Common Era. Massive thing. But the pin mechanism inside it, almost identical to what you'll find in a standard door lock today. Thousands of years, and we barely changed the core idea. Remarkable when you think about it, that something so ancient still turns in our hands every single morning. So next time you reach into your pocket and grab that little piece of metal, just hold it for a second. Feel the weight of it, the ridges, the teeth, the shape that fits exactly one lock in the entire world. That key connects you to Egyptian tomb builders, Roman senators, medieval kings, and a French monarch who probably should have spent less time in his workshop. Funny how something that small can carry 4,000 years of power. So yeah, that's keys. 4,000 years of secrets, power, paranoia, and one very dedicated French king. Not bad for something you almost forgot on the counter this morning. And if this one made you stop and think, even just for a second, hit subscribe. There's more where this came from. Ordinary things with extraordinary stories hiding inside them.